Hey everyone, before we dive into this raw, heart-pounding tale that's been clawing its way out of me, I've got a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. It keeps this channel alive, means the world to me, and trust me, you won't want to miss a beat of this. It's a story of betrayal cracking open into a triumph that'll grip you tight and never let go. Let's get started. The apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, a sound I'd never noticed until tonight. Its low drone a steady pulse in the stillness. It was late, past midnight, March 30th, 2025, and I, Evelyn Brooks, sat on my faded gray couch, phone clutched in my hands, my fingers cold against its smooth edges as if they sensed the storm brewing before my mind could catch up. A text had pinged an hour ago from Nick, the 25-year-old junior strategist I'd mentored for 2 years at Carver & Dunn Analytics, a scrappy kid with a quick grin I'd taken under my wing when he'd fumbled his first presentation. His notes scattering across the conference room floor. Thought you'd want to see this before Monday. It read, no explanation, just a video attachment that sat there like a loaded gun, its presence heavy in the dim light. I pressed play, and the screen flickered to life, the glow casting shadows across my face. There she was, Lydia Carver, my boss of 18 years, co-founder of the firm, standing in the warm haze of the company's annual retreat, a glass of red wine glinting in her manicured hand, the deep crimson catching the chandelier's light. Her sharp bob framed a face I'd once trusted implicitly, her voice, that crisp, commanding alto I'd heard steer meetings, deflect blame and charm clients, cut through the murmur of the crowd like a blade through silk. "Evelyn's such a loyal little mule," she said, a smirk twisting her lips, her eyes glinting with a cruel amusement, plodding along carrying the load. "Next month we're cutting her loose. She'll never see it coming." Laughter rippled through the room. My co-workers, people I'd shared late-night takeout with in the break room, people I'd bailed out of deadlines with coffee runs and quick fixes. Some chuckled, quick and uneasy, their eyes darting to the floor, others averted their gazes entirely, but no one spoke up. Not one soul in that sea of familiar faces. I stared at the screen, the 35-second clip looping before I could stop it, my chest tightening as a bitter acidic burn clawed up my throat, searing its way into my jaw. 18 years at Carver & Dunn flashed behind my eyes, nights hunched over datasets until my vision blurred and my neck ached, missed anniversaries with my partner Anna, her birthday dinners replaced by takeout alone at my desk, weekends sacrificed to polish pitches so Lydia could stride into boardrooms like a queen, her heels clicking with unearned confidence. I'd fixed her errors, charts she'd misread in front of clients, projections she'd botched under pressure, smoothed her tantrums when she'd snapped at junior staff, defended her when the whispers of her slipping edge grew too loud in the hallways, her once sharp mind dulled by years of coasting on my work. And this was my reward. A punchline tossed to a room of snickers, my loyalty mocked in front of the very people I'd propped up alongside her. I replayed it, forcing myself to hear it again. Loyal little mule, cutting her loose, her smugness dripping from every word, thick and venomous, a poison I'd been blind to for too long. My hands shook, not with fear but with a heat that surged from deep within, rage and humiliation igniting like wildfire, then cooling into something sharper, colder, resolve hard as steel. Lydia thought I was blind, a faithful cog too dull to turn against her, a workhorse she could ride until it broke and then discard without a second thought. She was wrong, dead wrong. By the third loop, I wasn't just watching my betrayal. I was plotting her downfall, each replay stoking the fire in my gut. The audience she'd preened for would witness a different performance soon, and I'd be the one directing the lights, turning her stage into a pyre. Sleep didn't come that night. The bedroom was a cavern of shadows, the ceiling a blank canvas for my racing thoughts, its faint cracks spiderwebbing like the fractures in my trust. I lay there, still in my hoodie and leggings, the phone discarded on the nightstand like a live wire I couldn't touch again, its screen dark but its echo alive in my head. Lydia's voice looped in my skull. Loyal little mule, each syllable a thorn twisting deeper, drawing blood from wounds I hadn't known were there. 18 years I'd given her. Every crunch time when the office lights buzzed past midnight, every cancelled plan with Anna or my brother Jack, every time I'd swallowed her credit stealing with a tight smile and a nod, telling myself it was for the team, for the future she'd promised. I'd saved her more times than I could count, and she'd turned me into a jest, a footnote in her self-aggrandizing tale. My eyes traced the ceiling's flaws, and something shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, raw and jagged, a knife in my ribs, but it was hardening into steel, a blade I'd wield myself. I thought of every analysis I'd refined for her, every client I'd won while she faltered in the background. She wasn't the genius she pretended to be. It was. And she just handed me the torch to set her world ablaze. By the time the first gray light slipped through the blinds, my decision was ironclad, unyielding as the dawn breaking over Brooklyn's rooftops. If Lydia thought I'd slink into Monday clueless, if she believed I'd fade quietly under her blade like the obedient mule she'd named me, she was about to learn how gravely she'd misjudged me. I didn't need sleep. I needed a strategy, a plan as precise as the data models I'd built for her. As the clock ticked toward morning, the threads of it wove together in my mind, tight, deliberate, and sharp enough to slice through her arrogance like a scalpel through flesh. I walked into Carver & Dunn at 8 a.m., same as always, the office humming with its Monday rhythm. Phones chirping, keyboards clattering, the stale scent of burnt coffee lingering like a warning in the air. My heartbeat was steady, my face a mask of calm I'd honed over years of navigating Lydia's chaos, a shield I'd perfected through gritted teeth and forced nods. I dressed sharp, charcoal blazer, cream blouse, slacks pressed to a crisp edge, because today wasn't just another day. It was the opening move in a game she didn't know we were playing, a chessboard I'd already begun to rig. Lydia's office door was ajar, a beacon of her overconfidence, the morning light spilling out like a taunt. She lounged in her chair, laughing with Greg, the 48-year-old who'd always been her echo. His tie perpetually crooked, his laugh a grating bark. I paused in the doorway, letting my shadow stretch across the carpet, a silent herald of the shift she couldn't yet sense. "Morning, Lydia," I said, my voice polite, a smile curling just enough to seem routine, a practiced curve I'd worn too long. Her hazel eyes flicked to me, and for a split second I saw it. Not guilt, not doubt, but a gleam of smug certainty, thick as the wine she'd sipped Saturday night. Her lips still stained with its memory in my mind. "Good weekend, Evelyn?" she asked, her tone airy, light as if she hadn't mocked me to a crowd 48 hours ago, as if her words hadn't sliced me open and left me bleeding. I nodded, holding her gaze, my eyes steady where hers flickered. "Great weekend. Feeling ready for a big month." Her smirk widened, a predator sizing up prey she'd already dismissed as harmless, a mule too dumb to buck. "That's what I love about you," she said, leaning forward slightly, her elbows resting on her desk, daring me to flinch to show a crack. "Always so dependable." I didn't flinch. I turned, walked to my desk and sat, the weight of her ignorance settling over me like armor, heavy but empowering. She thought she had me boxed in, a pawn waiting for the axe to fall, a loyal drone she could discard without consequence. She had no idea I'd already sharpened my own blade, that I was forging it in the fire of her betrayal. The office pulsed around me, interns shuffling reports with nervous energy, the printer wheezing like an old man fighting for breath, but my mind was elsewhere, a battlefield of its own. I opened my laptop, fingers hovering over the keys, and let the facade lock into place with a click that echoed in my bones. For now I'd play the part, loyal Evelyn, oblivious and pliant, the mule she'd mocked, but beneath it I was shifting pieces she couldn't see, moving pawns she didn't know I controlled. If she thought I'd walk blindly into her trap, she didn't know me at all. Not the real me, the one who'd survived her reign, the one who'd learned to thrive in her shadow. I glanced at her office again, her laughter drifting out like a taunt, sharp and careless. "Enjoy it, Lydia," I thought, my lips twitching with a secret she'd never guess. "It's the last time you'll laugh on my watch." The game had begun, and I was already ahead before she'd even picked up the dice. I'd landed at Carver & Dunn in June 2007, 27 and fresh from a master's in data analytics at NYU. My resume a patchwork of internships and a hunger to prove myself that burned brighter than the Manhattan skyline. Lydia hired me over a cluttered desk in a cramped office that smelled of ink and ambition. Her handshake firm, her eyes sharp as she sized me up through wire-rimmed glasses she'd stopped wearing a decade ago. "You've got grit, Evelyn," she'd said, her voice a whip crack of promise, her posture radiating the kind of confidence I wanted to mirror. "We're building something big here. You'll grow with us." I believed her, diving in with a zeal that bordered on reckless. My cubicle a battlefield of spreadsheets, coffee cups, and late-night breakthroughs, the fluorescent lights my only stars. Over 18 years I became the spine of the operation, fixing botched projections when deadlines loomed like guillotines, mentoring newbies like Nick, who'd arrived green and nervous in 2023. His first pitch a mess of stammered stats until I stayed late, coaching him through it over cold pizza, his gratitude lighting up his face. I pulled all-nighters to save accounts Lydia let slip through her fingers. Jack, my brother, once called at 3 a.m. to find me still at my desk laughing. "You're married to that place, Ev." Clients knew me. Sarah from Horizon Tech hugged me after I turned her failing campaign into a goldmine in 2015, whispering, "You're the real deal, Ev," her voice thick with relief. I thrived on it, the rush of a tight deadline met, the quiet wins when a client emailed, nailed it, the rare nods from Lydia that kept me pushing, kept me believing in her vision, in the partnership she'd dangled like a carrot. Her hint started 5 years ago, subtle but pointed, slipped into chats over lukewarm coffee in the break room. The machines hiss a backdrop to her promises. "You're my rock, Evelyn, VP's yours when the time's right," she'd say, her voice low, conspiratorial, like we were plotting a coup against the world. I trusted her, poured more into Carver and Dunn, sidelining dreams I'd once scribbled in Brooklyn bars with Anna. Consulting gigs I'd imagined, passion projects I'd shoved into a folder labeled someday that gathered dust in my closet. Friendships frayed under the weight of overtime. Anna's texts went unanswered, dinners with her cancelled with a guilty "Next time, I swear." My life narrowing to the glow of my monitor and the hum of the office AC, a rhythm I'd synced my heartbeat to. I'd convinced myself it was worth it, that Lydia saw me, that my loyalty would pay off in that corner office with my name on the door. I'd even started dressing sharper, prepping for the role I'd been promised, the role I'd earned with every late night and salvage deal, my wardrobe shifting from jeans to tailored blazers, a silent rehearsal for the future I'd built in my head. Nick burst in 2 years ago, a whirlwind of energy. His messy hair and quick-witted jolt to the team's stale air. He was good, raw but good. His ideas fresh, his drive infectious, a spark I hadn't seen since my own early days. I didn't mind, I guided him, shared tricks I'd honed over sleepless nights, pivot table shortcuts, client quirks I'd memorized like a second language, walked him through pitches until his nerves steadied. I'd catch him at my desk sometimes, flipping through my notes, his grin flashing as he'd say, "Borrowing your genius, Ev, you're a legend." I'd laugh, wave it off. "Teamwork, kid." Thinking we'd rise together in Carver and Dunn's glass-walled world, my 18 years and his two a tandem forging something new. Jack, who'd left the firm in 2012 after a clash with Lydia over credit, warned me once over beers. "She'll chew you up, Ev, watch your back." I'd brushed it off, loyal to a fault. Saturday's video shattered that illusion, Lydia's words. "Loyal little mule." Cutting her loose. Cut deeper than I'd expected, a knife twisting in a wound I'd ignored, exposing the lie I'd swallowed, the trust I'd misplaced in a woman who'd never meant to keep her word, who'd used my faith as a stepping stone. Hey, if you're hooked, and I hope you are, subscribe now. It's free, and the storm's just brewing. Stick with me. The next 6 weeks were a masterclass in deception, a tightrope I walked with precision honed by years of swallowing Lydia's slights. I walked into Carver and Dunn each morning, my heels clicking a steady rhythm on the tile, my smile a polished shield masking the war raging inside. The office hummed, phones trilling, printers groaning, the faint scent of toner sharp in the air. But I was a phantom in the chaos, playing the perfect employee with a finesse that felt almost theatrical. I nodded in meetings, offered insights with calculated warmth, my voice steady as I suggested tweaks to campaigns, took on extra work without a flicker of strain, my hands never trembling as I passed files to Greg or met Lydia's gaze across the table. Late nights became my fortress, the fluorescent buzz my companion as I stayed past the others, the office emptying into silence save for the janitor's distant hum. My fingers danced over my keyboard, but I wasn't refining Lydia's pitches anymore. I was gathering ammo, building a case as meticulously as I'd once built her success. Emails piled into a hidden folder. Every curt order she'd sent at 2 a.m., every veiled jab buried in a thread like, "Evelyn can fix this mess," her tone dripping with entitlement. Contracts followed. Ones I'd drafted from scratch or rescued from her sloppy oversight, each a testament to the wins she'd claimed in boardrooms. Her voice ringing with pride that should have been mine. Financial reports too. Messy gaps Greg had ignored. Holes I'd plugged silently for years, my initials buried in the margins of documents that kept the firm afloat. To most, they were scraps, forgotten clutter. To me, they were dynamite, a stockpile of evidence I'd detonate when the time was right. I reached out to old clients, casual calls over my lunch break, a soft hint dropped into the static. I'm exploring new paths, wanted to check in. Their replies were swift, eager. Sarah from Horizon. Evelyn, we'd follow you to the moon, you know that. Her voice warm with the trust I'd earned. Tom from Apex. You're the reason we stayed, say the word. I filed their loyalty away. A growing arsenal I'd wield soon. Then there was Anna, my partner, who'd seen the video Sunday morning over coffee at our kitchen table. Her brown eyes blazing as she slammed her mug down, the ceramic rattling. She's a snake, gut her Ev, she'd said, her voice fierce, her hand gripping mine. I'd grinned, her fire stoking mine. A reminder of the life I'd neglected for Lydia's game. I met a lawyer too. Marissa, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with a steel-gray bob, over tea downtown in a cafe that smelled of cinnamon and second chances. Non-competes are shaky here, she said, scribbling notes on a legal pad, her pen scratching like a metronome. Play it smart and you'll walk free. Maybe take her down with you if that's what you're after. I left with her card and a blueprint forming, each step clearer in my mind. The final piece clicked when I called Dunn & Pierce, a rival firm that had circled Carver and Dunn for years like sharks scenting blood. There's Mark didn't hesitate. His voice clipped and hungry over the line. Evelyn Brooks. We've watched you, your name's gold here. Let's talk. I hung up, staring at the city lights beyond my window, Lydia's wine-soaked laugh looping in my mind, fueling every move, every calculated risk. I wasn't just leaving, I was taking her kingdom with me. Brick by brick, client by client. The morning of my last day broke cold and heavy, the sky a slate of tension I could taste on my tongue, a metallic edge that matched my mood. I arrived early, laptop bag slung over my shoulder like a weapon, the office quiet save for the HVAC's drone and the coffee machine's drip, a rhythm I'd once found comforting now sounding like a countdown. Lydia's office glowed. She was in there, laughing with Greg again, their voices a smug chorus that grated against my nerves. I let my gaze linger, my smile a mask over the tempest roaring inside, a storm she'd unleashed without knowing. The day crawled, emails answered with curt efficiency, nods to coworkers who'd laughed at me, my pulse a steady drumbeat beneath my calm exterior. At 2:45 p.m., her door swung wider, and Tara from HR stepped in, her face a blank slate, her heels muffled on the carpet. My phone stayed silent, coiled and ready, a snake waiting to strike. Then at 3:15 it buzzed, Lydia Carver. Please come to my office. The summons I'd waited 6 weeks for, the moment I'd scripted in my sleepless nights. I exhaled, smoothing my blazer, the fabric cool under my palms, and crossed the floor, heels echoing like a countdown to her reckoning. Showtime. I knocked, stepping in with that same polite smile I'd worn all month, a mask I'd perfected through years of her games. The office smelled of lavender and power, a cloying mix that turned my stomach. Tara sat with a folder, standard HR fare, her posture stiff. Lydia leaned back, her fake sympathy a rehearsed mask, her lips pursed in a way that didn't reach her eyes. Evelyn, sit, she said, her voice smooth, scripted, a performance she'd probably practiced in her mirror. I did, hands folded in my lap, meeting her gaze without a waver, my spine straight as iron. We valued your 18 years here, she began, the words hollow, rehearsed, rolling off her tongue like a politician's platitude. But the industry's shifting and we're restructuring. Your role's being phased out. Effective immediately. Tara slid the folder across. Severance, a corporate bandage for a wound she thought she'd inflicted cleanly. We want a smooth transition, Lydia added, watching me, her eyes narrowing slightly, expecting a crack, tears, please, a flicker of the mule breaking. I smiled, soft and steady, my voice calm as a still lake. I understand. She blinked, a flicker of unease breaking her poise, her fingers twitching on her pen. "We'll need your laptop and badge by day's end, NDAs too," she said, regaining her footing, her tone firming up. "Of course," I nodded, calm as glass, unshaken. She leaned forward, her tone syrupy, a false warmth I saw through like cheap cellophane. "It's tough, I know, but you're capable, Evelyn. You'll bounce back." "Oh, I will," I said, my voice a quiet blade, sharp enough to nick her confidence. Her relief flashed, misplaced, a brief softening of her shoulders. I stood, taking the folder, and walked out, the weight of 18 years lifting. Not hers to wield anymore, but mine to weaponize, a power she'd never seen coming. Back at my desk, I moved fast. Archiving emails, contracts, client files, all legal while I had access, my fingers flying with a precision born of years at this keyboard. At 4:50, I emailed Sarah at Horizon. "Hi Sarah, after 18 great years at Carver & Dunn, I'm moving on. I'd love to keep working with you. Let's chat soon. Send." Then Tom at Apex. "Hey Tom, big changes here, I'm stepping away. Let's talk about what's next. Send." I packed pens, a photo of Anna laughing at the beach, the laptop I'd surrender, smiling at coworkers with polite farewells, my voice light as I said, "See you around," to faces that had laughed at me, their unease palpable now. At 5 o'clock sharp I walked out, the glass doors hissing shut behind me, my shadow stretching long on the pavement, a silhouette of freedom. Lydia had no clue what I'd ignited, the fuse I'd lit under her empire. The next morning my phone buzzed awake. 4 missed calls from Carver & Dunn, unknown extensions screaming Lydia's panic, a symphony of desperation I let play out. I smirked, leaning back against my pillows, letting the 5th ring out unanswered, picturing her unraveling. Her sharp bob must, her voice cracking as she barked at underlings. By noon, Nick texted, "Evelyn, office is chaos. Sarah pulled Horizon's contract overnight. Lydia's screaming at everyone." I laughed, the sound bouncing off my bare walls, a release that felt like shedding chains. Sarah had moved fast. No Evelyn, no reason to stay, her trust in me a lifeline I'd earned over a decade. At 2 o'clock Lydia called, her voice tight, a thread about to snap. "Evelyn, Sarah mentioned you reached out. What's this about?" I let the silence stretch, savoring her strain, the faint hitch in her breath. "I did," I said simply, my tone flat, giving her nothing. "This is a misunderstanding, office chatter, you know how it goes." She forced a laugh, brittle as ice, crumbling under its own weight. "I don't hold grudges, Lydia, I make choices." I cut in, cool and lethal, my words a dart finding its mark. "Are you with someone else?" She pressed, desperation seeping through, her composure fraying. "Not your concern," I said, hanging up as she cursed, her control slipping through her fingers like sand. That afternoon, I stepped into Dunn & Pierce's sleek office, its glass walls a stark contrast to Carver & Dunn's dated clutter. Mark greeted me with a firm handshake, his gray eyes sharp behind horn-rimmed glasses, a predator recognizing prey in his sights. "Lydia's sinking, heard Horizon bailed," he said, leading me to a conference room with a view of the Hudson shimmering beyond. "You want in?" I slid a file across. Client projections I'd rebuilt from memory, Carver's weak spots I'd propped up for years, every flaw I'd masked now laid bare. "Start here," I said, my voice steady. He grinned, flipping through, his fingers tracing numbers that spelled Lydia's doom. "This is war. You're handing me a loaded gun." "And I'm your general," I replied, leaning back, my posture relaxed but my eyes fierce. Terms were set. I wasn't just joining. I was bringing Carver's lifeblood with me, a migration that'd bleed her dry. By Monday, 5 clients jumped, Horizon, Apex, Blue Wave, Nexus, Peak, emails piling up in my inbox. "We trust Evelyn. You're our anchor." Lydia called again, frantic, her voice a raw edge. "You're killing us. 5 accounts, millions gone overnight. What are you telling them?" "You killed yourself," I said, my tone cold as steel, hanging up as she sputtered, her pleas a fading echo. Tuesday, I walked into Carver & Dunn as a specter. Heels echoing through a tense hush, The usual chatter replaced by whispers and quick glances darting my way like startled birds. Lydia's office was dim. She sat, haggard, eyes sunken into dark pools, her sharp bob limp, her hands gripping her desk as if it could anchor her. "How's it going?" I asked, light as air, my voice a needle in her silence. "What do you want?" she rasped, her throat raw, her arrogance stripped bare. "To see you learn," I said, smiling, a curve that held no warmth. "Fix this, what'll it take?" she pleaded, her voice breaking, a surrender I'd waited 18 years to hear. "Too late," I replied, turning, my heels clicking a final note. "Enjoy the fall." I paused at the door, glancing back. You should have seen me coming. By Friday, headlines roared. Carver and Dunn bleeds clients. CO faces axe. Dunn and Pierce surges with key wins. Lydia was out by noon, forced out in disgrace. Her exit a public unraveling plastered across every screen. I sat in my new Dunn and Pierce office, a corner suite with a skyline view, coffee in hand, its bitter edge a perfect match for the satisfaction curling through me. Nick texted, "She's gone, board dumped her." "You're a legend if." Anna called, her voice bright. "You did it, proud of you." I toasted the silence, her empire dust, mine rising from its ashes. Saturday, I met Jack for drinks. His grin wide as he slid a beer across the table. "Told you she'd eat her own tail. Should have listened in 12. I laughed, clinking bottles. Took me longer, but I hit harder. Monday, Mark offered me a partnership stake, his handshake firm. "You're not just a hire, you're a force." I smiled, the weight of possibility settling. My terms, my future. That night, I stood by my window, wine in hand, the city glittering below. "I win," I whispered, a quiet vow to the empire I'd claimed. Hey, if that hit you, subscribe. More grits coming. What would you do? Comments below, I'm all ears. See you next time.